It's action on your favorite two old friends, breaking down cinema's latest trends, looking at movies from a different lens. Zach and Ben are picture pals. These guys ain't run-of-the-mill film bros. Got interviews with lots of real film pros. Grab that popcorn and away we go. Zach and Ben are picture pals. Zach and Ben are picture pals.
Let's do supporting, and then we'll do animated and international.
Agreed. Those are good categories.
I mean, I've read some of the screenplays. I don't think we need to get into it. That can be for
Part two.
Screenwriting Pals, the spinoff. But
Picture Pals and Screen Pals.
Screen Pals, Pencil Pals.
Oh.
Thank you.
Okay. Pen Pals was right there, but
Pen
no.
Pals is right there. I didn't even reach for it. I had to go pencil. Let's do Best Supporting Actor. This is Yura Borisov in Nora, Kieran Culkin in A Real Pain, Edward Norton, A Complete Unknown, Guy Pearce, The Brutalist, and Jeremy Strong in The Apprentice. Zach, give me your hot takes, your cold takes, and everything in between.
If I can give you a cold take, it's that this is wrapped up, and it has been for a long time.
Really?
I think so. I think it's going to be Kieran Culkin, and I don't think that there's really any chance of anything else.
Wow.
I don't know that I necessarily would pick Kieran Culkin, although I think he is really good in that role, playing himself, I think. But, I mean, he just wins. He's won everything.
Fair. Do you think Kieran Culkin plays too much of his, like a more PG-13 version of his Succession character?
Yeah, he does, to an extent, for sure. It's been a minute since I watched Succession, but definitely, like, there are some commonalities there. You can't get away from yourself, you know what I mean? But, I mean, it is a great performance, and there's a reason why that character on Succession is so popular and beloved for all of his flaws. And in A Real Pain, it's a similar sort of way. It's a great performance. I don't think I've felt so deeply uncomfortable in a movie this year as I did in some of the moments with Kieran Culkin in A Real Pain. Really queasy stuff in a different way from the substance. It's a deserving performance, but I do think that there is a lot of other really good performances here, really across the board. I would say I think that Edward Norton is probably the weak link for me, personally. I don't know if from a who's going to win perspective, I think he might be up there, but yeah, really, really strong stuff. I think Guy Pearce was really fun in The Brutalist. Really liked that. Jeremy Strong in The Apprentice, easily the best part of the movie, in my opinion. Yura Borisov, a quieter, more measured performance. Very captivating. A little bit harder to wrap your arms around, I thought, but also like really strong. How did you feel about this roster?
So I will agree with you that Ed Norton kind of gives us the most traditional supporting performance. You know, he's there to kind of drive Timothée Chalamet forward, drive Bob Dylan forward. I like the representation of Pete Seeger as someone who knows Pete Seeger music, who also dabbles in banjo, not well, but I agree with you. I think it was classic in a way that these other performances really stood out kind of ahead above. I agree with you that Guy Pearce was an incredibly captivating, menacing performance, both in part 1 and part 2 of The Brutalist. Jeremy Strong, great. Yura, I also agree, more measured, more quiet, and I think sometimes given the unknownness of actors, like, to me, Yura is that character, right? I don't know how he exists outside of that, in a way that I know Ed Norton exists outside of something, outside of playing Pete Seeger. Yura was that character. I agree he was hard to define. I think he can get away with it by being quiet and measured, because it's kind of like the quiet brooding type, and he doesn't answer all your questions. I don't know if we should reward that in the same way that someone who kind of goes all out, like Jeremy Strong, like committed to that character, and I know Jeremy Strong commits to characters because this is his acting style. So And Kieran Culkin too. I liked A Real Pain. My big gripe with the performance is that it felt like sanitized version of what he plays in Succession.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I thought I'm gonna say Jeremy Strong was probably and Guy Pearce were probably my top two. If I had to choose, I guess I would agree with you. Kieran Culkin has won everything so far, but my heart of hearts performance would probably be Strong.
Yeah, agreed. Strong, with a close second for Pierce for me, but yeah, ultimately Kieran Culkin, definitely the prediction. You'd be, I think, silly not to put your money on him. This is not an endorsement. Feel free to do it of your own choices.
Best Supporting Actress?
Actress in a supporting role, you might say.
I like that one too. This is interesting to me because going into the season, I thought that there would be a front runner, but I'm not so sure anymore.
Okay, talk about that.
So, I remember leaving the theater after Wicked and saying it's Ariana Grande. It's incredible. She is Glinda or Galinda, depending on what part of the film you're watching. She plays it so well. Her singing is impeccable. Her acting is impeccable. But the industry chatter has not coalesced around her in the same way as Kieran Culkin. And, looking at this list, I also think that there are strong performances from, Monica Barbaro and Zoe Saldana, and even Felicity Jones. I think it's hard to give an award out maybe to Felicity because she's just not present in one half of the film. But I'm a little surprised that Ariana Grande hasn't caught fire for her performance in the way that I thought she would. What are your thoughts?
Well, I agree with you that Felicity Jones maybe is the odd one out on this list. She certainly is for me. I think that's probably the weakest performance on this list. Not that it's not a good performance. It's just the other ones, especially, Ariana Grande, Zoe Saldana, and Monica Barbaro, which I learned is the correct pronunciation, Ben. These performances are, for me, really moments in the theater where I'm like, who is this? Where did this come from this person? And that is just exactly what you want when you're trying to win an award, is to have that sort of reaction from your audience. Ariana Grande, who knew? I mean, I guess, we should have known she was an actress before she was a singer. But, man, I had no idea. Such a fun performance. So clearly put in a lot of work, and it paid off. Monica Barbaro, was not familiar with her. She came in swinging. Amazing voice. I don't know that I necessarily think we should reward an acting award for a singing ability, but unbelievable, and a performance that is also equally captivating. And Zoe Saldana, who knew when she takes off the blue paint what she was capable of? That's an Avatar reference, Ben. She was singing, dancing in a way that I've never seen from her before, and I think it was really impressive and a reminder that you don't get cast in the biggest movies of all time consistently if you don't have some chops. You know what I mean? Yes. Isabella Rossellini had a lot of early momentum. I don't know if you remember that. Really sort of fell off. I kind of see why. She doesn't have a huge imprint on the film. I know that she is very beloved in Hollywood, but in terms of, there's got to be a loose correlation with the winner of these supporting categories and screen time to an extent. The more you see, the more moments you have to latch onto. And so someone like Isabella Rossellini, someone like Felicity Jones, those performances are just smaller in how much screen time they get, and it's hard to latch on in the way that you can for, especially Zoe Saldana and Ariana Grande, which are arguably category fraud and belong in Best Actress.
Yeah, I agree with you on that one. I mean, that is a whole controversy in and of itself.
We don't shy away from it, that's for sure. Any of these, in your heart of hearts, speak to you? I know we haven't talked about our predictions, but maybe let's start with the heart this time.
I'm double in for Ariana Grande. I think her performance was the best of the year. Not take anything away from these other fantastic performances. I think she should win, and I think she will win. But I will say, in counterpoint to the points that we both made about screen time, if I remember correctly, I think Judd Hirsch won for The Fabelmans, and
Great
he had
point.
like 2 minutes. But that those 2 minutes were so undeniable and so integral to the main character's progression, to the entire worldview of this main character, that I think it works. I don't know if Isabel Rossellini had that performance, because first of all, her performance was very subdued in a great way, and it showed the power dynamics, at play within, the Holy See. And I think Felicity Jones suffers from, we've spent an hour and a half living with our main character, and now someone else kind of comes in, and we know about her existence, but it's the way the film was structured. It's hard for her to catch up and make that ground. Even in her, in some ways, even at Felicity Jones' biggest moment, when she confronts, the Van Buren family, it feels like she's doing it on behalf of her main character in a way that doesn't stand on her own, but is in service to Adrian Brody's probably winning performance. So for me, it's Grande. Make it a venti.
You sly dog. You snuck that right in there, and I did not see that coming at all. I'm flustered. I'm really happy for you, Ben. I hope that happens. My heart wants Ariana in this award. I think that's easily the supporting performance of the year, minus some category fraud shenanigans that might be at play. For sure, that's the hands down performance for me. But I don't know that she's going to win. I'm not convinced. I still think that Zoe Saldana has a chance. I know that Emilia Perez is really on the way out in terms of all the controversy surrounding that film, and especially around Sophia. But I think Zoe Saldana is getting a lot of love for that performance. She's won some awards for it, as has Ariana Grande. I don't know. I don't think I can split hairs more than that, but I just have a feeling that it's going to end up being Zoe up on that stage. And I think maybe it's partially because there's a group that is going to not want to reward someone that they don't perceive as an actress, that they perceive as a singer. I think that's unfair, because I think it's a fantastic performance. But I think that might end up hurting her, and it might be Zoe.
Do you think there's also this push of we don't want to reward Emilia Perez because of all this controversy, but we don't want to hurt Zoe Saldana in this role? We don't want to, we want to give them something in a way.
Totally.
If there's one role that stands out in the film, it's her, in my opinion.
I agree. I think that it's a better performance than Sophia's performance, personally. I think it's more captivating and more interesting and more layered. And I do definitely agree that voters are going to want to give Emilia Perez something. And I think this is the strongest thing that they could reward based on where we're at in the season.
Okay. You want to move on to Best Animated Feature? I think this is actually a very interesting, unless you have something else to say.
No, I'm about to echo your sentiments. Let's talk about it.
This is up there with Best Picture. This is going to be more interesting than Best Picture.
Okay, so what is interesting? Well, who's in contention?
So I think you have your two giant movies. You have your Inside Out and your Wild Robot. Both did fantastic at the box office. Both have different ethos when it comes to story. I think Inside Out 2 is the Pixar model. Wild Robot is much more scrappy in terms of storytelling, animation style. I think there's so much love for Wallace and Gromit out there. People really like it. People are responding really well to a very beloved franchise. I don't know if I would put Memoir of a Snail as actually my weakest choice. And I think the surprising for me, and something that has been, I think the chatter is really growing on this one, is Flow. I think Flow recently hit HBO. You can watch it for free if you have HBO, which is not for free because you have to pay for the service. But if you pay for the service, Flow is on there.
Listener, that's on Crave in Canada. Ben, to you?
It's on Crave in Canada. I mean, I don't know what to choose. My heart says Wild Robot. Because I think the problem with foreign, mainly Flow, to a lesser extent Wallace and Gromit, is that you're just not going to get the amount of Academy voters to vote for it because they haven't seen it. They're not going to watch it. And at some point it becomes a numbers game, and Best Animated Feature, it's who you... A lot of these voters, if they're going to go see it, are going to be seeing it with their kids, and so they're sitting there in the theater, bringing their kids, and the two movies that they're seeing in the theaters is Inside Out 2 and Wild Robot. Though they might not be what I want to win, they are the most two realistic choices, and then from the two most realistic choices, I have one that's my favorite. So,
okay, I think that's a pretty astute breakdown. I'll add a couple little nuggets to it. First is that Memoir of a Snail is also international. It's from Australia. I don't know if you checked that out. It's about this. It's an autobiography, I guess, about the filmmaker's life growing up in the foster home system by way of all the characters are snails and living in like snail world. No, that's not true. They're people. They have snails. It's claymation. They all kind of look like snails. It's an interesting film. Wasn't really my cup of tea, but certainly is worth checking out if you're into something it's definitely the most different movie on this list, and yeah, it deals with very adult themes. Agree with you with Wallace and Gromit. This is a comfort food movie through and through. It's somehow very timely too, with a lot of the AI type discussions and fears that we have going on. Who would have expected that from Wallace and Gromit? Not I, but it's ringing true to a lot of people. And I think it's also worth mentioning that Inside Out 2, up until, was it like 3 days ago? Or maybe it's about to change, but is the most successful at the box office animated movie of all time, globally. Which is crazy. Wow. In Mexico, Inside Out 2 is the highest grossing movie, period, of all time. It is unbelievable the numbers that this movie has done. And I don't think we can discount that in terms of this is the movie, like you said, that everyone is bringing their kids to. Along with The Wild Robot to a lesser extent, I think. And it is a big presence. I think that it's a little bit longer in the tooth now. It did come out in, was it May or something? So maybe people are a little bored of it. I think that's the thing that it has going against it. It's also not, I don't think, as beloved as the first Inside Out, which makes it maybe a bit tougher, living in the shadow a little bit to some people. My heart, though, my heart is with The Wild Robot through and through. It was one of my favorite movies of the year, to be quite honest. I thought it was absolutely lovely, about this robot that crash lands on this planet filled with these critters and has to become a mother to this gosling, which is a type of bird, a baby bird, and it raises this bird to join the flock one day when it's ready. It's a bit of an outcast, and it is an absolutely touching story that, you know, if it was designed less as a family film and had the confidence to hold some of its shots just ever so slightly longer, it could have been like in contention for my movie of the year. I really, really loved it. Definitely, like, that's where my heart is. And I think that's where my brain is too. I think there's an outside chance for Flow. But I think that less and less every day. What about you, Ben?
I mean, I'll say that I've seen, you know, most of these films nominated here. Overall, we're talking animated, documentary, shorts, best foreign. And I don't think I cried in any of them except The Wild Robot.
I cried too.
I think that really got me. That's where my heart is. And maybe I'm such a homer, because that's where my head is too. I really think Inside Out deserves its laurels. I think the laurels is the amount of money it's bringing in.
Absolutely.
But I agree. It's a little long in the tooth. It's a little bit. It's been out there. Wild Robot's been out there too, but it feels there's a heart to the Wild Robot that was present in Inside Out, the first movie, that you kind of get used to it in the second movie in the way that the Wild Robot felt new. I think there is an outside chance for Flo. I think they're doing a really good campaign for it. But Wild Robot, you know, double it up.
Yeah.
Send it my way.
Yeah, for sure. Really, really fun category. I'm really interested to see how this plays out when we get to awards in just 12 days. Should we talk about international?
Yeah, because we've heard these names before for most of these films, and it's kind of like if you're not going to award these films for Best Animated or Picture of the Year, it often goes to, you know, the Best International. But right now you have 3 different films that are nominated for Best Animated or Best Picture that are also in the Best International. It's a very stacked year for films that have reached critical acclaim. You have Amelia Perez, you have Flo, you have I'm Still Here, and then you have 2, The Girl with the Needle and The Seed of the Sacred Fig, both incredible films in their own right. That, I mean, yeah. Zach, what do you feel?
Here's a hot take of a question, okay? We see, like you said, this category is being recognized in other categories. You know, I'm Still Here and Amelia Perez in Best Picture and Flo in Best Animated. That's awesome and definitely speaks to the internationalization of the Academy, which is really great. It's awesome to have those other perspectives being represented in the Academy, and we're seeing these films show up, these deserving films in the big categories. Does it start to make this category redundant?
Like it's the best of the rest, kind of like.
Yeah, it's kind of like, well, if the international features are winning or in contention for Best Picture, then why are we recognizing them in their own category?
That is a really good point. I don't know if I have an answer for that, and I don't know if I have a fully fledged opinion on it. But when you think about Parasite, that won both,
Yeah.
Best International and Best Picture, it did feel redundant.
Yeah.
I wonder if there is some sort of criteria that you can both uplift international film without dumping the second, you know, the Bridesmaids of all these other categories into it.
Yeah.
Not to say that these aren't great films, because they're also fantastic films. And my guess is that one of the 3 that have been in previous categories will win this.
Yeah.
But that also hurts movies like The Girl with the Needle, or The Seed of the Sacred Fig, and it actually has cut out great number of other films, including one from Canada this year that I saw.
Sugarcane?
Not Sugarcane.
Oh.
It's Universal Language.
Oh, I have tickets for this.
So tell me what you think of it. It is a submission that I thought would have made the list, but since you're only limited to 5, and 3 of them have been, you know, held up as best of the best in the respective categories, you're only limited to 2, and I definitely think The Girl with the Needle deserves its inclusion on this list, 100%. And
Yeah,
I think
that's an intense film.
Yeah,
That's an
and I think
experience.
beautiful film. So I mean, I think everything is deserving to be on the list. I get your point. It's like, is it redundant, and do we care? Like, is it a consolation prize that Amelia Perez will probably win Best International Feature, or I'm Still Here could win Best International Feature, or even Flo might have an outside chance at this? Like, why don't you just give a silver Oscar out to these films then? You know, you get a gold for winning and you get a silver for second place, because this is what it feels like.
Giving a silver award to the international category only is a wild idea, Benjamin.
That's not what I meant. That's not what
I would like
meant.
to
I'm saying,
disavow
like,
this idea. publicly.
Oh no!
I think that it should
No.
be extra gold.
I agree.
I kid. It is a really interesting conversation, and I personally would love to see more films represented here. As in general, I think this year there are 35 feature films represented between all of the categories. That isn't the same every year. Sometimes we have over 40 films represented. Some years we have less, but it's the more films that get nominated, the more films will be seen by people outside of those like us who just kind of make their mission to see them all. And being able to keep more films in this category would be really great. And these obviously very deserving films that are nominated elsewhere is awesome, but I would love to see other films being represented too. As for me, I think that Emilia Perez is probably going to take this home, especially because the controversy around this film is, in my interpretation, doesn't seem to be as big of a concern to some of the international bodies. And so I think that this is the category that it maybe has been damaged the least. And like we talked about when we were talking about Best Actress, maybe this is the one where they decide to throw it a bone, so to speak. My heart is with I'm Still Here. My heart is definitely with I'm Still Here. I will admit, one of the few films I have not seen is Seed of the Sacred Fig. I have a ticket for next week. I couldn't quite get it in under the wire, but so I can't really speak to that one, but I really loved I'm Still Here. It really blew me away. It's really just holds you tight in like a hug sort of way for the whole 2.5 hours, which is really fantastic in a way that Emilia Perez was. I saw it at the Vancouver Film Festival, so it was like this packed theater, this really like gung-ho audience, and it's like a really sort of shocking film in a lot of ways, or surprising, or really throws some ideas that you're not used to being confronted with in movies in your face, and what types of characters we see on screen, and what are the paths that they take, was really stuck with me. I thought it was really interesting. But ultimately, it just didn't make me feel good in the way that I'm Still Here did. And that's what I so loved. I also think Emilia Perez's ending falls extremely flat, which I don't think helps it for me personally. So I'm Still Here has my heart, but Emilia Perez has my brain. What do you think?
Brain, Emilia Perez, I think it's the consolation prize. I think the controversy around it diminishes when you're in an international film category. And I will actually say, though it freaked me out, The Girl with the Needle was such an arresting film for me, and so beautiful, I thought, the way it was shot and the way the story was presented, that I encourage no one to see it, but I love it because it is arresting might be a good word for it. Oppressive.
Harrowing, yeah. If you're into feeling good, I'm Still Here is still here. But Flow is also another natural choice for something if you want to see a bunch of animals come together to overcome obstacles. Both physical, relational, and emotional.
Which are kind of the three tracks when you create a narrative. Your physical, the character faces the physical obstacles, the inner obstacles.
Yeah, save it for pen pals.
Okay. So,
Holy.
We've been talking for quite a while. Is there any other films you want to kind of shout out or talk about? We could talk about how we're not presenting any original songs this year because we really want Wicked to have their moments.
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I don't need to see the Ballad of Buster Scruggs play. Or some song from The Journey from 688. I get it. Diane Warren, love it. But do we need to see Diane Warren?
I think I like that movie more than most people did. I had a pretty good time with it, even though it's a little bit like a Lifetime movie or something in a lot of ways, but it hit me in the feels in a way that I thought was pretty satisfying. But I agree, like, I don't need the Emilia Perez, like, I don't know, the penis vagina song, you know? There goes our 18A rating on their podcast. You know, I'd rather spend that time with some extra clips from these movies, with some behind the scenes, with some more time on the stage for the speeches, you know, all that sort of stuff. So I welcome the change personally. If we're gonna give some shout outs, you know, maybe next episode when we talk through our takeaways, we can talk about some of the movies that the Oscars missed entirely. But it would be great to mention a couple films that have been nominated that we haven't talked about today. And for me, there's a couple highlights that we haven't really spoken about too much. I think, do you check out Alien Romulus?
I haven't seen it, but I've heard great things across the board.
Okay. I have not seen all the Alien movies. I've seen the first 3, I think. And then I just went and checked this out. And I thought it was so fun. I know that there has a lot of Alien fans that had a lot of issues with it. I think there's some inconsistencies with the world building and some callbacks that felt a little cheap, perhaps, but I didn't understand them. And when you don't pick up on those fan service moments, you actually have a great time. And I just had so fun. I'm blanking right now on the name of the young man who plays the android. David Johnson gives an unreal performance, as does Kaylee Spaney as the main character. I think, like, that was one of my most surprising movies of the year in terms of I went to see it because I had nothing to do and I felt an obligation, and it ended up being a lot of fun to me. So I'll shout that one out, and I'll give you one more just for fun, and that one is going to be Porcelain War. Porcelain War, if you saw it, Ben, was about the war in Ukraine against the Russian invasion over there. Sorry, I just got a notification about the war in Ukraine. About the war in Ukraine, about the Russian invasion, and it's on this artist couple, and about how they're trying to balance their life both in their enlisting in the military and trying to stay on the front lines and defend their home while continuing to make art and spread some culture and really like fight this incursion against Ukraine's culture and trying to erase this culture. I think it was a fascinating movie that just absolutely blew me away. And I know I said only one more, but I'm going to give you one more, Ben. I'm going to give you a third, and that's Sugarcane, because Sugarcane is a documentary that is close to home for me physically, because it takes place in British Columbia, about a 3-hour drive from where I'm standing right now. And this is a look at a man who comes from a family an Indigenous family who were victims of the residential school system in Canada. I know you have had in the U.S. some similar overlapping history that is quite horrific. And basically it follows this man, Julian Brave Noisecat, as he kind of confronts his family history and works through some of these difficult topics with his father as all these mass graves are being uncovered just a couple years ago up in the Okanagan in British Columbia. It really, I found it very affecting, and just like recognizing those landscapes really hit it home for me in a way that most films don't, I guess I would say. So definitely worth checking out if you haven't seen it. Ben, any films you want to shout out?
Yeah, I think a few. I think interesting in this whole conversation, we haven't really talked about Dune Part 2, which is a Best Picture nom. and also cinematography. I think
Mm-hmm.
the two films that maybe we haven't talked a lot about is Nosferatu and Dune Part 2. Both are worth seeing for cinematography alone. But if it came down to things that people may not have seen, I think on the animated short side, Magic Candies is a really fun, beautiful film. It was recently at the Vancouver Short Fest last year, or late last year, I believe. I think you can watch. I don't know where you can get it, but
You definitely can go see all the nominated short films in the theater right now. They have programs where you can go see all of the animated short films, all of the documentary short films, all of the live action short films as like a program where you watch them back to back. So if that is something that you, listener, singular, are interested in, definitely check that out.
And I would say the other one is Instruments of a Beating Heart. I think it's a really great short doc. I don't want to spoil it too much, but the central song, Ode to Joy, through the lens of like Japanese children is just very interesting. Big fan. I don't know if it will win, but I think there's some really strong actually contenders in short doc and in short animated. I think they often, they're not even awarded on the broadcast half the time, but these are the ones that sometimes really catch your eye when you go to short fests, which are really fun to do, and they're usually inexpensive. So, I think go see Magic Candies, go see Instruments of Beating Heart. I know Death by Numbers is also kind of beautiful and poetic as well, and people might respond to that, especially in short. That's kind of like the vibe people like when they go to see shorts. But yeah, those are my two. I think we're getting near the end. So let's what's next, right? Or or do you want to just recap real quick? Up to you.
Well, I wasn't taking notes, so unless you have a better memory than me, maybe we leave it for the listener to just soak it in.
I like that. Percolate on that a bit.
Absolutely. What's next, Ben?
So I think next episode, we're going to talk about the Oscars, and we're talking about, this is pre-Oscars, so hopefully by the time I can edit it, it'll be out before the Oscars, which are on the 2nd, not the 4th, so 2 less days. So we'll go through the Oscars, we'll do a recap, we'll do the dubs, the wins, the snubs, and possibly even the flubs. And then I think coming up, whether it's that episode or the following episode, we'll try the post-award state of the mediums. What is film like in 2025? What are we seeing? What are the big trends, the big genres, the big films of the year? And does the awards kind of portend these new shifts and trends, or is there going to be a snap back to previous years when it comes to box office numbers versus critical support? And then maybe we'll get in a little bit to, like I said, the looking ahead. What are we excited for? We're going to be bringing on some guests, including Young Director in the next few episodes. So it'll be really great. I think what we'll do to supplement kind of forward-looking stuff is maybe Zach and I will rewatch a movie, talk about it, kind of doing a fun rewatch, and maybe we'll bring in our creatives to tell us their favorite movie. We'll rewatch it and we'll discuss how it applies to their process. So these are all really fun things to look forward to. Zach, do you have any comments, concerns, questions, thoughts?
No, I look forward to it. I look forward to discussing movies with you, even more with some of the people that you're going to bring on. There's only so much that we can talk without getting bored ourselves. I can't even imagine what our listener thinks. Very much looking forward to seeing how the Oscars shakes out. It'll be an interesting night. We'll see how it goes. Ben, a final question, a final prediction for the Oscar for you. How many seconds will the Best Picture acceptance speech be?
No. How many seconds?
Yeah. Just think hard on that.
Okay,
one.
and then I have something for you too.
Okay.
How many seconds? Sorry, my producer was giving me notes. Our producer is giving me notes behind my shoulder, listener who you can't see. But
No, she
be
wasn't.
called out. She wasn't. Seconds. It would probably have to be 94 seconds.
False. It's going to be at
Zach, tell
least
me.
200 seconds.
200 seconds?
You heard it here.
You heard it here? On this podcast, on Pitcher Pals. Which, by the way, when you pitched the name of the podcast to me, I thought it was some brilliant spur-of-the-moment formation of a name. But little did I know, it has been a name that you've been using for upwards of 3 years. Tell me more.
Using is a very exaggerated term for what I was doing with that. I will tell you. But yeah, I have had other group forums, I guess you could say, that went by this name. I think it's a great little name. And you know what? I would argue that some of the people involved under that banner in the past were not exactly my pals. And so why not redefine and recapture Picture Pals with someone who is truly a pal?
Oh, stop. That means a lot. And you know what? I will look past the fact that this is your one good idea you've been running with for 3 years now.
You only get one.
You only get one. Well, it is always a pleasure talking with my pal, Zach. I am so excited about what this podcast will bring. And I can't wait for more.
Absolutely. Thanks, pal.
See you later, pal.
It's action on your favorite two old friends, breaking down cinema's latest trends, looking at movies from a different lens. Zach and Ben are Picture Pals.